I opened my eyes expecting morning light. But the sky above me was black, and yet the city blazed with daylight. On top of every skyscraper, enormous glowing orbs floated, flooding the streets with a cold, artificial brightness. I wasn't alone. My best friend stood next to me, shielding his eyes. "Do you see this too?" he asked. It wasn't the sun. It couldn't be. It never moved, never warmed our skin. It was too perfect, too sterile. Then we noticed something else on the glass wall of a tower. Red letters flickered. Energy remaining. 7 days. That's when I realized this world had lost its real sun, and now cities lived under machines pretending to be one. Subscribe now, because what I'm about to tell you is a truth they've buried for centuries. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Cities always had noise cars, chatter, sirens, something. But here, beneath the frozen glare of that glowing orb perched on the tallest skyscraper, everything was eerily calm. The streets stretched wide and clean, lined with towering glass and steel buildings. The orb's light washed them in a blinding white, but it was different from real sunlight. There was no warmth, no golden glow. It felt clinical, like standing under a giant fluorescent bulb. Beside me, Daniel rubbed his eyes, squinting. "Man, this isn't right," he muttered. "It's noon bright, but the sky's black. Look at it." I tilted my head up. Above the shining rooftops, the heavens weren't blue, but an endless void speckled with stars, as if night and day were colliding in one impossible moment. We walked cautiously down the street. The people here moved in silence, all wearing identical pale suits and black tinted glasses, like a uniform. Nobody smiled. Nobody spoke. Their faces were blank, drained. They passed us without a glance, their steps synchronized, as if marching to some unheard rhythm. Daniel nudged me. "Why are they dressed the same? And why do they act like robots?" I didn't answer. My stomach twisted, and a deep unease spread through me. These weren't normal people. This wasn't a normal city. Then we both stopped. At the base of a skyscraper, a massive digital screen pulsed red against the white glare. Its letters glowed, hard and sharp. Energy remaining. 7 days. Daniel swallowed hard. 7 days. Until what? We glanced at each other, and for the first time I saw real fear in his eyes. I whispered, "Maybe that's how long their fake sun lasts." As if on cue, the orb above flickered just once, but enough to send a ripple through the crowd. Every suited figure froze, their heads tilting upward in perfect unison, watching their artificial god with dead devotion. Daniel grabbed my arm, his voice low and shaking. "Did you see that? They stopped like someone flipped a switch. They're all connected." The light stabilized again, and the people resumed walking, as though nothing had happened. We ducked into a narrow alley, breathing hard. The walls smelled of damp metal, and faint graffiti covered the bricks. Most of it was unreadable symbols, but one phrase was scratched deep, in jagged English letters. "The sun is a lie." I reached out and touched the rough carving with my fingers. My pulse thundered in my ears. Daniel's voice cracked. "If the real sun is gone, what happens when these orbs go out too?" For a moment, I didn't want to answer, but I already knew. This city didn't need to shout its warning. It was written in its silence, in its perfect order, in its mechanical glow. Something was dying here, and if we didn't figure out why we were brought into this world, we might die with it. We wandered the city for hours, though it was impossible to measure time here. The orb above never moved. No shadows stretched or shifted. The streets were locked in an eternal noon, even while the sky beyond the skyscrapers was pure black, stars hanging motionless like distant holes in the fabric of reality. Daniel walked close beside me, his voice low. This place. It feels staged, like a set. Everything's perfect, but it's dead. Where's the chaos? Where's the life? We stopped at a corner, where another massive screen flickered. This one didn't show a countdown. It played a looped message in a monotone voice. The Solar Reconstruction Initiative sustains our cities. Order is light. Obedience is survival. The image of the orb shimmered on the screen. Underneath it, endless lines of text scrolled too fast to read. Daniel grimaced. Creepy as hell. Feels like propaganda. We slipped inside one of the low buildings on the edge of the district, hoping to get out of the glare. Inside, dust coated the floor and shelves lined the walls. It wasn't abandoned, it was hidden. An archive. I wiped a layer of dirt from a console, and the screen crackled to life. Blue light flickered, and words appeared. Project. Solar Shield. Status. Failure. Daniel leaned in. Shield. I scrolled through pages of fragmented logs. My throat tightened as I read aloud. Global warming crisis escalated. Governments approved construction of atmospheric shields to reflect excess sunlight. Initial tests succeeded, but a cascade event destabilized the magnetic field. Natural sun output collapsed. My hands shook. They tried to fix the climate. Instead, they killed the sun. Daniel cursed under his breath. So these orbs, they're not just lights. They're replacements. Humanity wiped out the real thing. We dug deeper into the records. Some files were corrupted, glitching into static, but others showed images, schematics of massive energy spheres. Each mounted atop skyscrapers like crown jewels. Beneath them were tangled systems of reactors, conduits, and most disturbing life support modules. Daniel tapped the screen. Wait, life support? Why would a light bulb need that? The log continued. Energy shortfalls detected. Bioconversion initiated. Citizens conscripted as resource units. Daniel stepped back, his face pale. Bioconversion. You don't think... I cut him off, my stomach churning. They're not running on electricity. The room felt smaller, darker, despite the glow outside. Suddenly, a noise echoed down the hall. The shuffle of footsteps. Daniel snapped off the screen, and we pressed against the shelves, holding our breath. A figure entered. He wore the same pale suit and dark glasses as the others, but his steps weren't synchronized, his movements shaky. He muttered to himself, clutching a stack of old papers. Daniel whispered, "Should we talk to him?" Before I could stop him, he stepped forward. "Hey, wait!" The man froze. Slowly, he turned his head toward us. For the first time, I saw a human face here that wasn't blank. His skin was sickly pale, his eyes bloodshot, and his lips cracked. He looked terrified. "You don't belong here," he rasped. "If they see you, they'll take you to the towers. That's where the orbs feed." Daniel's jaw tightened. Feed. On what? The man didn't answer. He just shoved the papers into Daniel's chest and staggered toward the exit. Before he vanished, he whispered one last phrase that froze my blood. The sun didn't die. It was stolen. The man's words stuck in my head like a splinter. The sun didn't die. It was stolen. Daniel and I left the archive and stepped back into the blinding glare of the orb. But instead of comfort, its steady light now felt cruel, an imitation that only deepened the void above. Daniel clutched the stack of papers tighter. If these orbs are feeding on people, then where do they take them? Where do the unlucky ones go? I didn't answer. The truth pressed down on me with every step. We kept walking until the perfect grid of towers began to thin. The streets grew cracked, trash scattered in the gutters. Ahead, the glow of the orb didn't reach. Buildings leaned crooked, swallowed in shadows. It was like stepping off a stage set. From flawless scenery into a forgotten back lot. Daniel's voice dropped. This must be the dark sector. The difference was immediate. No artificial sun above, only the black sky and the faint glitter of unmoving stars. Here, the silence wasn't orderly. It was suffocating. As we entered, we heard whispers, not in the air, but in our heads. Shapes shifted in the alleys, people, but gaunt, with hollow eyes that reflected what little light our phones cast. One of them stumbled forward, her bare feet scraping the pavement. She looked half-starved, her face almost skeletal. But when she opened her mouth, her voice was steady. Chilling. You should leave. The spheres aren't light. They're prisons. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. What do you mean, prisons? She raised a trembling hand toward the skyline, pointing to the glowing orb in the distance. That light isn't free. Every second it burns someone. Another figure emerged from the shadows, dragging something behind him. At first, I thought it was junk, but then I saw the shape clearly. It was a broken orb, cracked and blackened, its surface still pulsing faintly with dying energy. Inside the fractured glass, something writhed, a body, twisted and charred, but still faintly glowing. Daniel staggered back. "Oh my God," the woman whispered again. "That's what happens when they run out. They replace us with new fuel. The city pretends it's alive, but it's eating itself." The broken orb let out a faint hum, like a heartbeat. I couldn't tear my eyes away. Then, from deeper in the shadows, a dozen pairs of glowing eyes appeared. Not machines. People. Survivors of the dark sector, their irises faintly lit like embers. They circled us, whispering in unison. "Don't look at the light. Don't trust the towers. The sun is a lie." I felt my chest tighten, as if the darkness itself was pressing in. Daniel grabbed my arm, panicked. "We have to get out of here." But before we could move, the broken orb pulsed again, sending out a faint red glow that bathed the ruined street. For a moment, the entire sector lit up, and in that instant, I saw something massive on the horizon. Not another city, not another orb. It was a structure, stretching higher than any skyscraper, black against the black sky. A tower that looked more like a machine than a building, with conduits spreading from its base like roots, reaching toward every city. Daniel's voice cracked as he whispered, "If the sun was stolen, that's where they took it." We left the dark sector shaken, the whispers of its starving residents still echoing in our minds. Daniel barely spoke as we followed the map from the archive papers, the pages trembling in his hands. It led us back into the blinding district, straight toward one of the towers that housed a sphere. The skyscraper loomed above us, its crown capped by the glowing orb. Up close, the light was unbearable. It didn't feel like sunshine. It felt like standing next to a furnace of pure radiation. The people around us walked calmly, as if immune, their mirrored glasses reflecting the white glare. Daniel glanced at me, his jaw set. If the spheres feed on people, this is where they do it. The tower's entrance was unguarded. The citizens flowed in and out like workers on a shift, silent, mechanical. We slipped in with the crowd, heads down, trying to blend. Inside, the lobby was cavernous, sterile white walls pulsing faintly with energy. Elevators lined the far wall, their doors sliding open and shut with perfect rhythm. We rode one up in silence, the floor numbers glowing with unnatural speed, 50, 100 foot, until the doors opened with a hiss. We stepped into darkness. The floor was unlike the pristine lobby. Here, the walls were metallic, alive with veins of blue light that pulsed like arteries, and in the center of the vast chamber stood rows of transparent capsules. Dozens, hundreds, each one filled with a body. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. The people inside weren't asleep. They were awake, their eyes wide open, pupils glowing faintly with the same cold light as the orb above. Tubes ran into their chests, their mouths sealed shut with glass-like masks. Their bodies twitched as though caught in an endless current. Daniel stumbled forward, pressing a hand against one of the capsules. His voice broke. "They're alive. They're the batteries." The hum of the orb vibrated through the floor, louder still here. With every pulse, the bodies shivered, their energy siphoned upward into conduits that climbed the walls and vanished into the ceiling. I forced myself to speak. "This is what keeps the city lit. They're sacrificing people to power the spheres." Daniel's hands shook as he pointed. "Look, over there." In the far corner stood a massive cylinder, larger than the rest. Inside, the figure looked eerily familiar. His hair, his face, even the scar above his eyebrow. Daniel stared at himself. It was him. He staggered back, choking on his own breath. "No, no, that's not possible." The other Daniel's eyes opened, glowing brighter than the rest. For a moment, his lips moved beneath the mask. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw them. "Run." The lights in the chamber flickered. Alarms wailed, sharp and mechanical. The floor trembled as panels shifted, sealing off exits. Daniel grabbed my arm. "We have to go, now." We sprinted through the maze of capsules, the glow from the bodies flashing like strobes. The sound of machinery roared around us, louder and louder, as if the tower itself was waking. As we reached the stairwell, the alarms stopped. Silence fell. The capsules all turned at once, every pair of glowing eyes fixed on us, hundreds of people staring through the glass. And then, in one terrible voice that wasn't theirs, but came from them all, the words filled the chamber. The sun was not lost. It was consumed. And now, it consumes you. Daniel yanked me down the stairwell, his face pale with terror. The voices followed, echoing inside our skulls. Somewhere above, the orb flared with blinding light, bathing the entire city in a pulse that shook the ground. We weren't just trespassers. We had been noticed. We stumbled out of the stairwell and into another level of the tower, gasping for air, as if we'd been running for miles. The walls here were different. No sterile white, no pulsing veins of blue light. Instead, they flickered with shifting images, like screens embedded in the stone. At first, I thought they were windows, but as I looked closer, I realized they were showing us. Daniel and I froze. Each panel displayed scenes from our lives, walking through our hometown, laughing at a bar, the night we'd fallen asleep before waking in this world. It was like someone had been recording us the entire time. Daniel's voice was a broken whisper. "They've been watching, since before we got here." As he spoke, one of the images shifted. Instead of showing the two of us, it showed the capsule chamber we'd just escaped. And inside, the glass pods weren't strangers anymore. It was us. Dozens of us. Our faces, our bodies, replicated and trapped, glowing with faint light. My stomach dropped. This isn't just a city. It's a machine. A loop. Daniel slammed his fist against the wall, the screen rippling like water. "None of this is real. It can't be." But the floor vibrated beneath us, and the panels synchronized, displaying a single image. The massive black tower we'd seen in the dark sector, its conduits snaking outward like veins. Above it burned a colossal orb, brighter than all the rest, swallowing the stars behind it. The voice returned, not from the walls this time, but from inside our skulls. The sun was not stolen, it was replicated. You are its fragments. You are the fuel. Daniel clutched his head, grimacing in pain. Stop! Get out of my mind! I grabbed his arm, but he shoved me away, his eyes glowing faintly with that same cold light. For a split second, his voice wasn't his own when he spoke. Maybe it's better this way. Maybe this world makes sense if we just give in. Fear clenched my chest. That's not you! Fight it, Daniel! They want to use us! The floor cracked, splitting like shattered glass, revealing darkness beneath. Through the cracks, I saw glimpses of something impossible. Our own world, faint and distorted, like a reflection in water. The bar we'd been in, our city streets, sunlight we hadn't seen in what felt like years. Daniel's glowing eyes flickered back to normal, tears streaming down his face. I saw home. It's still there. But if that's real, then what are we standing in now? The walls groaned, the images fracturing. Our reflections screamed silently from behind the glass, pounding their fists against invisible barriers. I shouted over the roar. This isn't just another world, it's a cage, a simulation feeding the spheres, and we're part of it. The orb above the tower pulsed again, and the cracks widened. Daniel stumbled, nearly falling into the abyss below. I pulled him back, but his face was pale, hollow. We're not supposed to escape, he said. We're supposed to choose. One of us stays to keep the light burning. The other runs. I shook my head violently. No, that's their choice, not ours. But deep down, I felt the truth pressing in. This world wasn't just collapsing. It was forcing us toward the decision it demanded. The countdown had begun, not just for the orb, but for us. The floor split wide beneath us, and the sound was like glass, shattering in every direction. Daniel and I stumbled onto a narrow bridge of steel that extended toward the heart of the tower. At the far end, a sphere pulsed, smaller than the one on the roof, but brighter, concentrated. Its light wasn't steady. It beat like a living heart. The voice returned, deep and resonant, vibrating inside my chest. One fuels, one survives. Daniel stopped in his tracks, staring at the light. His face glistened with sweat, his eyes flickering between normal and faintly glowing blue. It's inside me, he whispered. I can feel it pulling. Maybe I'm already chosen. I grabbed his shoulder. Don't say that. That's what it wants. It wants us to believe we don't have a choice. The bridge shook violently, forcing us to our knees. Below was endless black, but within it, faint outlines shimmered. Thousands of other bridges, other pairs of people, making the same walk, the same choice. Some were already gone. Others knelt frozen, their bodies glowing faintly as the system drained them. My breath hitched. It's been doing this for centuries, over and over. Daniel clenched his fists, trembling. If we fight it, maybe both of us die. If one of us gives in, maybe one lives. I shook my head, forcing my voice steady. No. If one of us gives in, the system wins. We have to break the pattern. The sphere ahead brightened, casting harsh white light over everything. Our shadows stretched long behind us, merging together on the fractured glass floor. For a moment, it looked like we were a single figure. The voice pressed harder, words pounding inside my skull like hammer blows. Choose, fuel the light, or be erased. Daniel stumbled forward, his expression twisted with pain. I can't take it anymore. Maybe if I step in, it'll be enough to free you. I ran to him, grabbing his arms, shaking him. No, Daniel. That's not freedom. That's surrender. If you do this, you're gone. Not saved, just burned away. His eyes flickered again, blue glow swallowing the brown I'd known my whole life. For a terrifying second, I thought he'd step off the bridge into the light. Then the floor shook again, harder this time. Cracks split open in the black below, and through them I saw our own world again. Daylight, streets, people, reality shimmering beneath the cage. I gasped. Look, it's there. Our world, it's real. This place is just a copy. Daniel froze, torn between the sphere and the vision below. His voice shook. If that's true, then why were we brought here? I didn't have an answer, but deep down I knew. We weren't chosen to survive. We were chosen to test, to see who would break and who would resist. The voice roared, angrier than before, shaking the bridge until bolts snapped free. One fuels, one survives. I looked at Daniel, my best friend, the one who had stood by me through everything. My voice was steady now, though my chest ached. Then we don't choose, not their way. If they want fuel, they can take nothing. For the first time, Daniel smiled through his fear. Together, then. Together. We clasped hands, standing against the blinding light, refusing to move. The sphere pulsed harder, brighter, as if enraged by our defiance. The bridge cracked and collapsed, sending us plummeting into the abyss below. As we fell, I saw the cracks in the blackness widen, sunlight blazing through, tearing the false world apart. The last thing I heard was Daniel's voice, steady and defiant. If they built this cage, we'll break it. The bridge shook so hard I thought it would collapse beneath us. The sphere at the far end pulsed faster now, each beat like a drum inside my skull. The voice grew louder, deeper, as if the whole tower had become its mouth. One fuels, one survives. Daniel staggered forward, clutching his head. His eyes flickered with that cold blue glow again. He was shaking, fighting it, but I could see the decision forming on his face. No, I said, stepping in front of him. We'll find another way. We always do. His laugh was broken, bitter. You don't get it. There isn't another way. Look around. I glanced down and saw hundreds of other bridges below us, stretching into the dark. On every one, pairs of figures made the same walk. Some had already chosen, one body glowing bright, dissolving into the light, while the other stumbled away, broken but alive. Daniel's voice cracked. This system doesn't let both escape. It only works because one stays. He grabbed my shoulders, his grip fierce, almost desperate. If you go back alone, at least you'll carry the memory. At least one of us gets to tell the truth. I shook my head violently. Don't say that. Don't you dare. But he smiled, and in that smile, I saw the friend who had been with me through everything. The one who always pushed forward when I hesitated, who always jumped first when I was afraid. Someone has to choose, he whispered. Before I could stop him, he wrenched free and ran toward the sphere. Daniel! My voice ripped from my throat, raw and useless. The light swallowed him instantly. His body arched, glowing veins spreading like rivers of fire beneath his skin. He didn't scream. He just looked back once, his eyes meeting mine across the blinding brightness. And then, he was gone. The sphere roared, its glow stabilizing into steady, brilliant light. The tower trembled as the energy surged upward through conduits, flowing into the orb above the city. Outside, I could hear the world react, the citizens gasping in unison, falling to their knees beneath the returning radiance. The countdowns vanished from the screens. The city was saved. But I stood alone on the bridge, staring at the space where Daniel had been. My best friend. My brother in everything but blood. And now he was nothing more than light feeding a machine. The voice returned, softer now, almost satisfied. One fuels. One survives. I collapsed to my knees, tears burning my eyes. My hands shook, my whole body trembling, but I refused to bow like the citizens outside. I whispered through clenched teeth, "This isn't survival. This is theft." Above me, the artificial sun blazed stronger than ever, but I felt no warmth, only the emptiness of what it had taken. I don't remember falling. One moment I was on the bridge, screaming Daniel's name as the light devoured him, and the next, I was opening my eyes in my own bed. The sheets were familiar. My apartment was exactly as I'd left it. For a few seconds, I almost believed it had been nothing more than a nightmare. Then I noticed the light. It streamed through my window, flooding the room in pale brightness. At first glance, it looked like the sun, but the warmth was gone. I pressed my hand against the glass, and the glow on my skin felt sterile, cold like the radiance of those orbs. My chest tightened. I ran outside. People bustled in the streets, cars rolled by, children laughed. For a heartbeat, everything seemed normal. But then I looked up. There it was. Not the golden disk I'd known all my life, not the burning star that gave us life, but an orb, massive, white, perfect, perched above the skyline, shining down with artificial brilliance. And as I scanned the horizon, I saw more. Dozens of spheres, crowning skyscrapers, their light overlapping, filling the sky with a false day. My knees buckled. No, this can't be real. A man in a suit brushed past me, his mirrored glasses reflecting the orb. His expression was blank, emotionless, just like the people in the other world. I grabbed his arm. "Don't you see it? That's not the sun." He turned his head slowly, his eyes hidden behind the glass. And in a voice flat and hollow, he whispered, "The sun belongs to them." My blood ran cold. I let go, stumbling back. All around me the crowd moved in rhythm, their steps synchronized, their heads tilting slightly toward the orb above. I shouted Daniel's name, as if, somehow, he could hear me through this imitation world. But the street swallowed my voice. Then I saw it. On my arm, faint but glowing, was a mark. Interlocking circles, the same pattern carved into the bridge, the same symbol that appeared when the system demanded a choice. The realization struck me like ice. I hadn't escaped. This wasn't home. It was another layer, another cage, another city under another false sun. And if Daniel had given himself to the machine, if he had truly become part of it, then maybe his sacrifice hadn't freed me. Maybe it had only reset the trap. I looked up at the orb blazing above me. For a second, I swore I saw a silhouette within its glow, vast and human-like, watching. I whispered into the false daylight, "If this is your prison, then I'll burn it. Every layer, every sun, until I find the real one." The orb pulsed once, like a heartbeat. The people around me froze, their mirrored glasses flashing white. And I knew, in that moment, the machine was listening.